But if the process isn't functioning the way it should be functioning, and then you're automating something that's not working, but you have to go back and make sure that the process is actually the right process, and then you can automate it, and then you can let it be a part of something bigger. And the same goes for if the people are not qualified, if the digital maturity is not there, if you're asking someone who can't even walk, tell them to go and fly, how am I going to do that?
You are connected to the Evolving Digital Podcast.
Hi, I'm Adam Butler, and this is Evolving Digital. We're here to pull back the curtains and share the secrets of digital giants and disruptors. We'll be bringing you high-quality, in-depth interviews, and all we ask of you is that you hit that subscribe button so we can keep doing this. Now let's jump into it.
Hi, I'm here with Michiel Verheij. He's a digital strategist at TRIMM for about 10 years now, I think.
Yeah,
Welcome.
think about 1 month, and then it's 10 years.
What's your favorite story about those 10 years?
Yeah, that's a very personal story. I've been telling people sometimes want to know what kind of a club TRIMM is, what kind of company. And my youngest son was on a waiting list for a liver transplant. And I was only there for a short amount of time, I think about a couple of months. And then one of my team members told me he had something to tell me, and he had a very serious look on his face. So I was already worried because I was new at the whole managing a team stuff. And then the whole team, we got up, but the whole team walked with me, and they told me, I was thinking, what's this? And we went to a conference room, and they told me everybody knew why we were here except me. And they said they wanted to show me their appreciation that I also had time for them and I had energy for them. At the same time, I was very busy with my personal situation. So they all gave me one holiday. So everyone gave me one of their holidays. So I had like 18 days more of holiday. So that's
team spirit.
Yeah, that's team spirit. That's always what I tell about TRIMM. I knew from before I applied at TRIMM that the company itself was Champions League, but then I also felt that the people working there were Champions League.
That's an awesome story to share. Yeah. And from the perspective of Champions League, what's the story that you tell then?
I think that's a project for Mitsubishi Chemical because that had all elements in it. It had cultural aspects, so the aspect of change. It had a lot of technical interesting aspects. And what I think is that quite often when we talk about digital, people view it as a technological issue or a technological project, but quite often it's knowing how culture works, how change works, and if we can help make the change go into the right direction. I think that's one of the most important things that I also learned that from my previous job. Mm-hmm. That was I was innovation officer and of innovation consultant, and quite a lot of people thought innovation is about technology, and the same goes about digital. But I think technology is maybe 15-20%, and about 80% is about change, is about the personal stuff, about the people stuff. Mm-hmm. So you can put in the best tool, but if the people don't come along, if the people don't have the bigger picture or the context about it, they're not gonna work in a way which you envisioned.
Well, let's keep that in mind for the topics that we will discuss later, because I've got 3 topics lined up for you. I want to talk a little bit about the difference between digitization, digitalization, and digital transformation. Apparently, there's a difference. Mm-hmm. How to start and prioritize, because obviously most of the companies don't really have a problem when they need to figure out what they could do, but then to figure out where to start and how to start. Yeah. And I want to talk a little bit about the culture and the people aspect. Mm-hmm. So starting with the first, what's the difference between digitization, digitalization, transformation?
Yeah, it can be an issue of semantics. Yeah. But what I believe is digitization, when you have an analog process and you digitize it, that's the first step. So that's like the bottom level. And from there, when we're talking about digitalization, it's doing more products and services with something digital and also connecting those services. And we're talking about digital transformation. You do other business models, other ways of doing business, and that's the top layer. And it's a lot of talk about digital transformation, but quite often, I think the biggest part of projects that are currently run are more digitalization. So we're not talking about transformation.
So people with the role digital transformation officer usually still aren't in that
I think they themselves might be at that stage, but we're talking about cultural things. If you want to transform your business model, but you don't have the basics in place yet, then you first have to work on the basics before you can actually start changing your business model. And I'm talking about digitalization. We're talking more about issues of efficiency and cost savings. When you're talking about digital transformation, it's more about how can you, as a company, operate in your markets where you're active with new business models, with new ways of attacking the business.
Yeah, I also spoke to someone who said perhaps it's not a matter of analog versus digital, but also repairs, innovation, and then repairs, optimization, innovation, and then transformation.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Yeah, I think also semantics, but I think making sure that the basics are in place. And then on basics, I'm not only talking about technology, but because quite often I'm a quite avid fan of the people process technology approach.
I think that's your favorite line.
Yeah, that's my favorite. It's
technology.
a golden triangle of Levitt, so it's not something new, but I always also emphasize it is people process technology and also in that order to make sure that you have to start on the people side. When a lot of our clients, they ask us, okay, can you do a project? And quite often we backtrack and say, okay, that's also good to know, but what's your strategy and how about the culture? How about the people? We have to always work backwards, and more people get aware that those are the most important things. But when talking about technology, people quite often only think about the bits and buying an actual product instead of, okay, what do I have to make sure that works and functions in the right way within my organization.
So it's not about building the right platform per se, but it comes with a lot of different topics as well.
Yeah. Yeah, when you're talking about the process, once you automate the process, but if the process isn't functioning the way it should be functioning, and then you're automating something that's not working, but you have to go back and make sure that the process is actually the right process, and then you can automate it, and then you can let it be a part of something bigger. And the same goes for if the people are not qualified or if they haven't got the right digital maturity. I'm also an avid fan of digital maturity model. If the digital maturity is not there, if you're asking someone who can't even walk, tell them to go and fly, how am I going to do that? I need the right tools. I need to even dare to go fly. That's the same with digital. People.
Can you give an example of how it would work if you apply the digital transformation model to a company? Can you give an example that you think stood out?
Yeah, and then I come back to MCAM as well, because what's really important was involvement of top management. Quite often people think, okay, we can do this bottom up, but I don't believe that that's possible. Maybe in some cases, but quite often it needs to be top down, and the management needs to be involved, and the management also have to have a certain amount of digital maturity, because otherwise you can't do this.
Yeah, that has to do with commitment and alignment, I guess.
Also, and it's not that they kick off a project and then top management just leaves, but they have to be involved continuously, instead of just, okay, I'm going to do the kickoff and I'm going to cut the ribbon once the ERP is implemented or once we got everything in place. They need to be involved on a constant basis. So what we are seeing more and more, and it's not always easy as a company, but the steering committees, more and more companies use steering committees, and also the people from the board and the top management take a seat in those steering committees to actually steer the project, and not so much, okay, this is a project. And quite often a project is not even the right name. Quite often they are programs. Yeah,
I was just about to say, is it just a transformation and a project that's a different level?
Yeah, transformation doesn't stop, does it? So it has quite often also people think it needs a certain starting point. In Dutch, we have a comic. It's called Fokken and Sukken, and they have a comic, and it says, "Okay, when is the culture change?" Yes,
it's like a button.
Yeah, it's a button. It's Thursday at 10 a.m. and then we're gonna do the culture change.
We're launching the new culture.
Yeah, we're launching the new culture, and that's the same for digital. Quite often, companies already are working on all sorts of changes, and they think, yeah, we're not that digital, but once you put everything in a row, they think, oh, there's a lot happening, but quite often the general overview is missing, and also where do you want to go? Or do you let things happen, or you're at the steering wheel yourself?
Yeah.
And so a lot of things are already in place, and people are doing it, but yeah, Then they let things happen instead of controlling and steering themselves.
Yeah. Can you give an example from high-tech and manufacturing, for example, in smart industry?
Yeah, there's a couple of clients we've been working for, like 24/7 Taylor Steel, and that's a company from the Achterhoek, where I'm from myself, Vassenveld, and among other places because they're expanding quite a bit. But then people can order the metal parts they want to have through the internet, and it's run through a machine that checks, okay, can it actually be made? Are the fabrications actually possible? And then all the machines automatically start making those parts, and they're being shipped. And you can
So from order to production is all digital?
Yeah. And sometimes companies use what I call a Chinese interface, and still manual steps are necessary. From what I know, they do quite a bit of automated, and the same goes for another one of our clients, that's Case Builder, and they are based in Duisburg. And people can order their flight cases online. So it's these black cases, which you quite often see, and you can have them in wood, but you can also have them in sort of really lightweight plastics. And people can order their flight case, and it doesn't really involve steps, but it's like there are no steps in between, like the centimeters which you need. And it's also done automatically. So they made... together with us, they made a configurator where you can actually order those things, or at least CPQ, configure, price, quotate, and then it's sent to their ERP. So the ERP is connected to this configurator, and it spits out those containers. They still, you can choose if you want to do it yourself, if you want to have like a flat pack, or they can construct it there themselves.
Why do you think these are two good examples? What makes them stand out compared to other initiatives?
I think the vision of the entrepreneurs behind it, they really have like a vision, and digital is an integral part of it. Instead of something that's added afterwards. What we quite often see is the industry is working in a certain way for 10, 20, 30 years, and then things become more and more digital, and they add digital afterwards, so it's quite often not an integral part of it. But these companies have been, from the get-go, they had a clear vision, okay, digital is the way to go, and I think the vision of the entrepreneurs is key.
Would you then say that existing companies that are on a road of digitalization, or at least innovation, will never reach that state, or?
They will reach the state, because a lot of companies, if they don't act on it, they are not there in 10 or 15 years. So I think a lot of people and also entrepreneurs and decision makers within these companies know that they have to, but makes things a lot harder. So quite often we think, okay, do you have to set like a business unit apart because it needs a different culture, and the existing culture is too, how shall I say it, keeping them from reaching their goals and targets, that they sometimes have to choose for, okay, am I going to do a business unit besides it, and then and suck it back into the company? That's not the proper word, but if they're going to like transfer it back into the company when it's big enough. So you have to make a culture change. People have to believe it. People have to see it, and that's change management is absolutely vital.
So that dot on the horizon, and really getting to this is where we're going and why we're going there. That's the important part.
Yeah, and also for one of our clients, when we implemented the system, then people from the commercial department were afraid that their jobs would be cut.
Yeah.
But a lot of things we put in place made sure that the daily things there were not too happy about. Okay, can you send me the receipt? Can you send me the invoice? And those things, that they don't have to do that anymore, because the client can do that through a self-service portal we put in place. So the job roles have to change. But if you're not told, okay, your job role is going to change, and you only see the technical thing being put in place, okay, that's my job, and
so the communication aspect of it is very important as well.
Yeah, communication is key. Communication, change management, that has to be in place. And I think you even have to over-communicate, because quite often people think, behind my working spot, I've got a little tile that says assumption is the mother of all nine. And then we can fill in the rest if we've all seen Die Hard, but we have to over-communicate to really take people along. And if people really...
It's a journey.
Yeah, it's a journey, and you always have people are the front runners, and people are like trying to prevent the change. But I think you have to really focus on the middle part, the silent majority, and you have to take them along.
Hi, Adam here again. I hope you're enjoying the conversation so far. This is only possible because of engagement from people like you. So click that subscribe button and keep listening. let's get back into it.
I want to circle back a little bit to what you said earlier. You said something about digital maturity, and would you say first of all, what is digital maturity or immaturity? How can you tell?
Digital maturity is you as an organization. What is your maturity? What's your age? Are you a young person or old person? Do you have a little?
So the staff, you mean, or
no, the entire organization. You can analyze that and see where you're currently at and what needs to be done to put it in place. It can be competences. People have to be trained. People have to be inspired. You might not even have the right people aboard. So if you say, okay, what we quite often see that our customers have like a whole garage with Ferraris, what I always call it.
In terms of tooling, you mean?
In types of tooling, I want to explain that. Then you have all sorts of really good tools, and people with experience know, okay, these are like the best you can buy, but no one actually knows how to use them. So when I'm talking about digital maturity, is also making sure, okay, did you have that driver's class? Did you have that advanced driver's class to actually know how to use that tool? And when I'm talking about digital maturity, it's got all sorts of aspects, also the people, process, technology aspects in it. And if you want to make steps towards the future, then you have to look, okay, where are we at now and where are you at the future? And then I can make an analogy when we're talking about finance. If you like, finance is a big part of your company, but you don't have like the people with experience of the controller, of the CFO, then they need to be put in place. And we see the same with digital.
So, but then what are signs that you could say, okay, my organization might not be as mature as I want it to be, or is very mature? So what are the signs or the tells? Apart from doing an assessment,
if you're not aware yourself, it's always hard to know. Okay, am I not aware? So, do you know what you don't know? So,
if you as an external consultant would come in and check the maturity of an organization, what are the tells and signs that you take into account?
Involvement of top management, and let's say some of our clients have a CDO, Chief Digital Officer. Sometimes there's a CIO, Chief Information Officer, or a CTO, Chief Technology Officer, and would like to know how involved in digital they are, or only the technology, the core technology of the company, of also the enabling technology when we're talking about digital. To check if it's part of the strategy. If there's no, I don't believe that you always need a separate digital strategy, but digital needs to be an integral part of your overall strategy. It's the same, what I always say, do companies have an electrical strategy? No, they don't have an electrical strategy because it's a part of their business. And the same goes for digital. But quite often, when we're talking about companies that are not digital mature, they view digital as something that's in a silo in the back of their lot. And it's not a part of the company. Yeah, that's those people from
something
digital.
From IT.
Yeah, something from IT. And quite often when we're talking about IT, it's more the management view and not so much the business enablement view. And when I see or feel that people see digital as something as enabling the business to do their daily thing, you can pull out the plug, the Ethernet cable, UTP cable, and everyone in the company will be running around. We can't do our business.
Yeah.
There's some strange disconnect when we're talking about digital as business enabled, but then sometimes, what are you talking about?
Can you explain?
When things don't function, it's more like the management part. That's the more the control part.
The hygiene factor.
Yeah, the hygiene factor, the efficiency factor. Can we do our business, but not so much what do we need from digital to actually enable the business, enable sales, enable engineering to actually do their business. And then there's some strange disconnect. But what I'm seeing is more and more companies are moving into what I call the business enablement view. That they see digital
as enabler for growth, you mean?
As enabler for growth, but it also can be for efficiency or for cost savings sometimes. But they see that it's a vital role. But when I have these discussions, okay, but you have a CFO, why don't you have a CDO? Yeah, then they look at me with a strange face. But I think it's just as important to make sure for each company actually that those people are in place, that the vision is there, that the inspiration is there, that the competences are there, and the staffing, because quite often also they're understaffed when we're talking about digital.
Okay, makes sense. Would you then say, what are the barriers when it comes to digital maturity, apart from there's no vision and not the right people in place? If there is a vision, what is then the first step?
Quite often you have to get people involved who have experience within this kind. And what we also see that sometimes companies think they have to have everything in-house, that they have to know everything, that they have to all the knowledge, that they quite often have to build their own tools. I think saying to yourself that you don't know everything and you need people from outside to help you, I think that's something. But that's also a mindset, a general mindset of a company, that you quite often have to hire people from outside to help you make these steps.
Yeah.
And it also, not so much vulnerability is not the right word, but you have to at least open the doors and see, okay, what's going on, and be...
Where can you complement each other? What do you need? What do you... Yeah.
And be very clear and open about it, transparent. I think transparent, if we're talking about old school thinking that everything has to be secure and no one from outside is coming in, and we see that with some companies when we're talking about, I always call that an investment mindset instead of a cost mindset. With a cost mindset, it's quite often very difficult to actually achieve success, at least if we are involved, let's say as TRIMM. But companies who have like more of an invest and a learning mindset, they can make a lot bigger steps and faster change.
Can you say more about that bit?
In what way?
In terms of the mindset and the learning and the investment mindset versus the cost mindset. Why is that important?
Yeah, if we're talking about learning, if we're going to do things digital, we're going to make mistakes. And if everything has to be first time right, that's not possible. And especially in the business, we are TRIMM because we're making something together with our clients. It's not so much you're going to buy something off the shelf. We have some off the shelf products and services. But quite often involvement of the client is vital, is key to make sure that it's a success. It's not, okay, TRIMM, we're going to hire TRIMM and we're going to wave our wand around and say, okay, simsalabim, it's ready. But we really need involvement from the client. And if you just want to buy something and talking about, if we talking about cost, instead of, okay, what are we investing with each other? What journey are we on? How are we going to learn? And that's a completely different mindset than a cost mindset. And quite often that causes a lot of friction. And those are things I've learned in the last 10 years, that if a client really only has a cost mindset, and I think costs, of course, it's a viable subject and we have to make sure that we keep it in check. But if that's the way you're going to start, I think you're going to start up on the wrong foot. Yeah,
you have the total cost of ownership framework, but there's also the total value framework, which I think it's semantics again, but it's a fundamental difference as well. Yeah. And it depends on your perspective. Are you looking at delivering value and enabling things, or are you seeing digital as a cost center?
Yeah, and it can be that the efficiency and cost cutting, that it's an important part to make sure that you stay in business.
Yeah.
But I think the best fit we as TRIMM quite often have with our clients, if they have another mindset, an investing mindset, a learning mindset, and okay, things go wrong, but how are you going to deal with that? If you have like the first time right and everything has to be perfect, that's not the business TRIMM is in. And I think if you want to make steps as a company, also when we're talking about digital, I think that's the way to go. If you only look at cost cutting, I think there's room for those companies.
Even in these days, these market trends.
Yeah, being able to change fast, of course, is important. Being able to add value. If you're only looking at cost cutting, I think it's a market segment that of course has its time and its place. But I think if you really want to make a difference. And really want to make changes and fast changes, what the market is more and more demanding. I think that investment mindset, that growth mindset is key.
Cool. The other day I was in a session with an organization that didn't seem to have any trouble to figure out innovative ideas that could work for them. So the number of ideas was huge. But then they had the struggle to identify, okay, but where do we start and where do we prioritize? What's your advice?
Yeah, that's also a cultural thing. I think I'm convinced that it's not so much the lack of ideas, but the lack of able to execute. To execute that's a vital part. You can.
So how do you find out what to execute?
I think. Being in touch with clients, So going out there and getting feedback. Currently for a client, we are actually starting to build a calculator tool. But before we actually start building it, we're gonna come up with some mock-ups and actually get feedback from the clients to make sure, okay, you can sit in your little bubble and think, okay, this is the best idea in the world. And then you go outside and a lot of money is spent and a lot of sunk costs are already there. And then the outside world says, okay, this is not the idea. So I think getting good feedback is a thing when we're talking about innovation. And it's also a little bit the agile mindset. Don't go too big from the start yet, but go fast and ask for feedback instead of trying to do everything in-house. And ta-da, here we are with our best idea. And then the market, but yeah, it's lacking here. I like to have that. And yeah, I think when talking about innovation, because it's also one of my previous jobs, is also the cultural element. We always said it's like 75% of innovation.
So it's a matter of value from the customer perspective and feasibility. Those are the two.
Yeah, if you could call it that way. Yeah.
I think that would make sense. And apart from you need to align all the initiatives, because for them it was, I think, about 30 ideas that they had, and they were all related to the customer. But then the feasibility part of it was the puzzle to them. So how do you assess where to start, whether it's scalable, whether you can do it, whether it's a low impact, whether it's for them, that's the struggle. Any advice on that bit?
Whew. I don't know. I have to have more insights into the actual case. I think it also the things that could be the most interesting. Okay, what can we pick up with the competences and things we have in place right now? So what is feasible within a short amount of time, and we don't see a lot of barriers right now. Yeah. Versus where do we need other technologies, other capabilities, other knowledge, other partners that are helping them out? I think those would be things. Okay, what's close to home? I think that would be the things for me to start. And of course, what are the costs and what are the possible returns? What are of the costs? What investment is necessary, and what's the possible?
And then the test mindset.
And the test mindset as well.
Do you have an example of a pilot or a test that you think that's how you get it done?
No, not right now. I have to think longer about it. Maybe in another session, but I don't have one up front which I can say, okay, that's the test mindset.
Yeah, I think I have one from a customer that said, okay, we want to do a specific configurator or at least a product selector. And when you talk to them first, they want to have all the features and all the things necessary, but then they don't have the budget to understand, is this going to be a success? So then really drilling down to what's necessary to understand what makes this a successful pilot and what is the minimum variant for that. For one specific use case was the key for them to say, okay, we'll start this as a pilot. And if this works for this specific category, for this specific product range, we will then scale it to other countries and to different product ranges. So that's how they did it. And I think that pilot mindset might make a difference in, failing fast. I also read that companies that really work on the digital transformation roadmap have I don't know the percentage by heart, but hundreds of ideas then the pilots, there's a percentage of that, and at the bottom, when you drill down in the funnel, the actual number of projects that make it to production is very limited as well. So you have to have a lot of ideas, a lot of pilots, learn from those, the learning mindset again, but not all of them will go through to production and to scaling. And I guess accepting that not everything is going to make it in the end. So accepting failure as an okay output is something we still need to learn. I think that might be culturally defined.
Yeah, you see, of course, in the Anglo-Saxon world, it's more like an investment in the startup world, but it's more commonplace over there. When we're talking about more the European mindset, it's everything has to be first time right, and especially Yeah, I think that's happening, but quite often what I also see, if there's a project now where I'm interviewing clients from all over the world, from Colombia to Indonesia.
Well, that's for sure.
And what we're seeing is that quite often, if you really come into good contact with your clients, that there's a lot of stuff, instead of only new things you have to think of making sure that the extra things you're actually doing right now are executed in the proper way, and all the faults are taken out. I think that there's also room to improve on that side as well. And I think that getting the antennas out there, and I always say you have like 2 ears and 1 mouth, and you have to use them in that that order. Mm-hmm. I think that also goes for a lot of our clients. If you want to like do new things, you can also improve on existing things, and clients will hand you over the gold. Quite often, if we are like in a conversation with a client, and they tell you all sorts of stuff, and we as TRIMM quite often do buy journey projects with our clients, and sometimes it happened that some of the remarks in the conversations, even before we actually started building stuff, already have so much value that we say, okay, this project has already been paid for because of the information from the client. And thinking that you know what a client actually needs, and especially when there are several steps of an organization in between, really coming in contact with the client and sitting at their desk, I think is vital. Yeah. It's for marketeers, it's for the technical people, and sales always says they know their client. There's also room for improvement,
but they typically don't.
Only from a certain viewpoint, but not always the case from a digital point or a marketing perspective.
Yeah, so know your client and know what actually makes
really
them
sit
tick.
at the table, and also salespeople.
So what do you ask them? Because you think you know your client, but if you're primed, then I think an open conversation is one of the most important aspects.
Yeah, and that's funny to see, because what we quite often do, that we tag along, or we are in the lead of a buyer journey or customer journey project, and the client sits next to us, and then they hear all sorts of stuff they normally never talk about, because we don't know certain things. Yeah. So if you're somewhat a more of open view, a broader perspective from the start, and quite often things come over the table, on the table, that they didn't expect at all. So okay, if I would have known that.
I remember doing that for a client a couple of years ago, and the context of where they work is also a very important element that you won't get from a phone conversation, for example. Yeah. I remember that that was with pharmacists. Mm-hmm. So we visited several pharmacists across the country and how they differ. One of the things that the organization already knew is that they were really, really busy and understaffed. Mm-hmm. But then actually going into a pharmacy and seeing that firsthand and how they work with their systems, who were at that time still running on MS-DOS, was like, oh, now I really get what you mean when you say we're still struggling. Yeah. So I think that's seeing it firsthand in their context will also make a big difference. Yeah, and then you really have to really go there. And when possible, also walk through the plant, or to get a feel, okay, what's happening over here, and really use your ears. Do you have an example of what you caught for a client when doing that? Yeah, several. There was one time a client, and they had like these pellet cars, and they were selling a certain brand but what happened is the sticker of the brand they were selling was a lot bigger than their own sticker on the pellet car. Mm-hmm. So I asked the owner, okay, who are they going to call after 10-15 years when they have such a big sticker on the pellet car, or if they have like a really small sticker on the pellet car? Mm. And he was looking at me and said, okay, remove that big sticker and change them around. And also one time, that was one of the cool examples of like, okay, why is this happening? Why are they actually doing that? And there's several of these things. I have like worked with lean management in previous roles and jobs, and then you get a certain mindset, a certain view of looking at things, and I can still use that nowadays for the business I'm in right now. But okay, why is it actually happening? Why are they actually doing that? What's the reason behind it? And sometimes for them it's logical as hell. And we think, okay, but that doesn't feel logical. And because we're new to the business. We're new to the business, so making sure that that's also a big thing. You asked me before, okay, what's the big success factor in digital changes? Is being really curious.
being curious. I think that's also, and questioning things, and not questioning things to burn them down, but questioning actually things, really wanting to know, okay, why is this done? Why is this happening? Why does this add value?
Yeah.
It's a little bit the lean mindset. You also have like, okay, does this add value? No. Okay, can we kill it?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a nice connection then, I guess, as well, because lean is also bottom up. I want to transition a bit into leadership. What do digital leaders do really well?
They listen. I think they listen to other opinions, other voices. They go to other industries.
Curious.
Yeah, curious. I think that's curious is a thing. Listening is a thing, but also having a vision and pushing that vision, but not with making casualties. Because sometimes that can happen if you have a certain vision that not everyone can come along. But I think also being compassionate and interested in what's behind people's feeling. Like the example I gave from people from the commercial department who are afraid of losing their jobs because of a new tool. But okay, I hear what you're saying. This is the idea behind it. So ideally, it would be communicated up front. But if you hear things like that, okay, take them along and tell them, okay, but no, this is the idea behind it. What I want to do is not you to ship over all the invoices, but free up your time so you can actually have a good conversation with the client. What do you need? How can I make you more successful? And then yes, okay, this is really cool because that's the part of the business I want to do. On the other hand, there are also people who are not capable, but you always have that case. And can you train them, or do we have another function? Or sometimes, it's not the right company for them anymore. But yeah, being curious, listening, being able to inspire people, I think that's important. Push the vision without being too aggressive, destructive. I think those are successful things. Looking in other industries, thinking that the new ideas come from other industries. So you have to look into other industries. If you're always talking to the same people, you're not getting new ideas.
I guess that, that's the curiosity aspect of it again.
Yeah, and I think if you lose that, then go find another job or go, do something else.
Yeah, and I think the role of the understanding the customer that we talked about just a bit before is also one of the...
Yeah, the customer and your customer's customer.
Yeah.
When there are more steps in the value chain, you always think you have the clear picture, but when you really do a deep dive, you see there's a lot more to it. That's for a project that's currently running. One of my colleagues went to Poland, and the client was so happy because they were complaining quite a while about a claims and returns process that was running in a certain way, and our client didn't have like the complete view of what was happening. And once they got over, they had like a conversation of 4 hours, but 2.5 hours of that conversation was about complaints and returns. And then they showed them how things function, and they showed how things work for real, like in the real world. And they had something. We didn't know. We had no idea that this was actually happening. So that's a lot of mutual understanding that comes into place. And you have to take your time. You have to be interested. You have to be open, because sometimes the clients will say things you're not very happy about, but will help you. If you use them in the right way, will help you improve. Yeah,
we spoke a little bit about the customer, about testing mindsets. What about data in AI?
Yeah, it's a hot topic right now. So everybody's talking about data. Everybody's talking about AI. But I always say a fool with a tool is still a fool. And you have to have an idea what you want to use it for. What's the bigger picture? That with data, I have a view already a long time and talking about insights and influence. You need to know. You want to have certain insights to make sure you can influence things in a certain way. So insights and influence, those are like also like two that always belong together in my view, in my opinion. But then sometimes you get insights you didn't expect. But sometimes you say, okay, what do you actually want to have insights on? Because you can have a lot of things, but what do you actually want? With
the vision again. So where do you want to go? Value.
Being interested, being curious, what's happening. And the same goes for AI. Recently, I visited a symposium and they said like AI is also a tool, but you actually have to start off with what's the problem, what's the issue at hand, and then we can use the tool. And it's the same with data. And sometimes you get stuff you didn't expect because they also said you have to experiment because this is the time of experimentation. When we're 5 or 10 years ahead, then a lot of things will have settled down and already reached a certain level. But experimentation and knowing what's the issue or what's the thing you want to tackle.
Yeah, I think the World Economic Forum had a list the other day on the top priority skills. AI and data are on number 3, I think, apart from analytical thinking and creative thinking. So that was the top 3. And what I'd see is if you start with a vision and know where you want to go, you start testing and piloting, you need to measure that as well.
Yeah.
So that is also the circle. So it's not measuring for measuring per se, or gathering data for the sake of gathering data.
No, you can really lose yourself. That's still the same. A fool with a tool is still a fool.
Yeah.
And I think that's the case for those issues as well. If you don't know the bigger picture, it might be that you need specialists who can really do a deep dive, or what you need is someone to have the general overview and know what's going on or know what you want to achieve. And then the specialist can go full blown and do what they need to do.
Yeah.
But someone has to be able to keep the bigger picture of what's going on and where we're heading to.
Yeah. My final question to you before we close this off is, which organization or which company do you look to when you think, that is the example in manufacturing or high tech, or that you feel have done it really well?
Yeah, that's always very hard to determine, because quite often we think for big brands that they are like, people look at the brands and they have like the also big organizations that's more complex and more money. But it might be even the smaller companies that one of the companies I really I work for myself is like casebuilder.com. And it's not a really big company. But the way how they approach things is like really cool. And I think there's still a ton of things to improve. But digital is in their core, how you want to order like a flight case. And they also want to like make an editor so you can have the foam internally. I think that's an example. But I think there are a lot of, what we always say, diamonds in the rough out there we don't even know, we don't even see, because a lot of it is happening behind the facade, behind
you can't tell because it's behind the closed walls.
And sometimes you could say like the companies, like Amazon, okay, your shipment is there and you have paid, and that's like Coolblue is also one of the companies been talked out a lot, but that's the communication and the marketing part. But I don't really have a name other than that. And also like 24/7 Tailor Steel is also an example who've done that like really, really well. But I think there are like a lot of diamonds in the rough we don't even know about, which have a really good way of doing things, and we don't even know about it. It's also sometimes the communication and marketing part of it, that the companies are actually top of the bill. I'm thinking about a company. I can't think of the name. It was a company.
What did they do?
Yeah, they're in Emmen. They're situated in Emmen in the Netherlands. And they used to be a hardware company. It's an example I've been telling for years. And initially what they did is they had a tool which you can put into the ground, and it can actually measure the amount of water that's in the soil.
Yeah.
And once you know the amount of water in the soil, they do a lot within the potato industry. And you can say, okay, the harvest is going to be good or it's going to be bad.
Oh.
They transitioned from a company who did that. They completely, because the Avico and the Farmfriends knew, okay, but it's not only about the hardware, but it's about the data that's coming out of these things. That's actually the value part of it. So the whole company transitioned from a hardware company more to a services company. And I think those examples of really knowing what business are you in. You're not in the business of putting these iron poles into the ground. No, you're in the business of making sure that the clients know what they can expect. Do they going to have a good harvest, a bad harvest? Do they need to buy more potatoes? And I think that I can't come off the name, but maybe we can put it in the bottom of the screen of the video or as a link in the podcast. But that was a company that made such a shift from, and there are more of these examples.
So a good question to ask if you're on this journey really is, what business are you in?
Yeah,
and what brings value to your customer?
Yeah, because quite often you can't see the forest from the trees, and really knowing what business are you in is a vital question.
Okay, well, thank you. What we do
welcome.
with every speaker is we ask them to come up with a question to ask the next speaker. So while you can already think about what you want to ask our next speaker. How do you see the industry in the next 30 years? 30 is quite a long time, but anyways, what's your hopes, your expectations?
Yeah, and then the industry is like the digital industry, or what's the...
I don't know, but if you would consider digital industry, that's fine by me. You can also take the manufacturing angle.
Yeah, I applied for TRIMM because I believe that we haven't seen, we have only seen a small part of digital. I've come from the generation we still know the modem with the sound, and we didn't have internet connectivity, and seeing what kind of changes and also what kind of societal changes are happening. I think we're still in the forefront of what's going to happen and the impact of digital on our lives, the way we do things. What's the industry going to look like? I see digital moving more and more to the core of businesses, where it started off as like only the website and only like the communication part of it. You see that it's come more and more to the core business of companies. So companies, digital agencies, but also manufacturing need to know more and more about what value does digital, what value and what impact does digital have to the core of their business.
Yeah.
So it's not only the outer shell anymore, only the communication layer, but it's actually going to the core of their business. Being able to help our clients, and also clients being aware, okay, what's the impact of digital? I think being aware of that is key. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for this conversation, Michiel.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Stay connected to the Evolving Digital Podcast. See you next time.